I mean, this may be a silly little romantic comedy of a book, but there is stuff in here that is deep and meaningful. Welcome to my Sunday show. I am Vivian, and today we are book talking about two books that a lot of people I think would call silly little romantic comedy books that you're just reading. It's entertainment purposes only. They aren't books that you'd ever nominate for your book club. They're not books that you probably even talk to anyone about, right? They're chick-lit. And you kind of think in the back of your head, or maybe in the front of your head, you think, wow, these kinds of books, they don't really have any kind of deep meaning that I can take from them, right? If that's what you were thinking about silly little romantic comedy, entertainment only chick lit books, well, I think you've got it all wrong. So let me tell you about these two books that I read last week, both of them by Maddie Dawson, and they both go together. Let me tell you about the books, and then let me show you how a silly little romantic comedy chick lit book that you're probably reading just to have a laugh, just to feel happy, just to be entertained for a few hours, how this little chick lit book can be more than just that. Sounds good? All right, let's go. So Marnie is a matchmaker slash florist who lives in Brooklyn in a fantastic brownstone with her boyfriend, Patrick. Marnie really wants to have a baby with Patrick. Patrick doesn't ever want to have a baby ever. But 9 years ago, Patrick had a two-night stand with a woman named Tessa, who he never saw again. And so he didn't ever know that Tessa got pregnant and had a daughter named Fritzy. So Fritzy is Patrick's now 8-year-old daughter, and Fritzy and Tessa show up out of the blue one day on Marnie and Patrick's doorstep. Marnie comes home and is surprised to learn that Patrick has a kid, but she's not unpleasantly surprised. She's maybe a little bit thrilled about the whole idea. Patrick, though, Patrick is not nearly as thrilled as Marnie is. So it seems that they're there, right? Tessa and Fritzy are there because Tessa has a boyfriend who lives in Italy, and Tessa's plan is she is going to jet off to Italy to spend a year with her boyfriend, who, much like Patrick, is not thrilled about Fritzy. So Tessa is looking for some place to stash Fritzy while she goes off on her love vacation. Marnie is like okay with that. And so Marnie talks Patrick into let's keep Fritzy for the school year. She talks him into it. Patrick's like, okay. So the rest of the book is a lot of stuff going on, but the rest of the book is Marnie stepmothering Fritzy and running her floral business and all of the quirky people that come in and out of the floral shop and come in and out of Marnie and Patrick's life, including there's something weird going on with Marnie's mom and dad that Marnie is trying to manage. So Marnie's busy and sort of having the time of her life, but she's harried. um, Patrick, while Marnie is having the time of her life, maybe, Patrick is like falling into the pit of despair for real. Um, he is also like, this is how far into the pit of despair Patrick is. Patrick is carrying on a secret love affair with his last girlfriend who is dead. Yeah, pit of despair, Patrick. So then Marnie has to deal with that. And then there's poor Fritzy, who is just trying to figure out where she belongs and who she belongs to. So all of this is like a big mess of a love story, right? There is lots of chaos. There are lots of broken hearts. And there might be a Christmas miracle. But it's also a story about how love doesn't maybe look like what you originally had in mind. It's a story about the families you're born into and the families that you make, and about how the universe is working really hard to make sure that it all ends up all right, no matter which way it ends up going. So I loved it. Yeah, I give 5 stars to A Happy Catastrophe. And I'm also giving it some Figgy Award nominations. Maybe. Right? I mean, look at this. So we've got Best Main Character for Marnie. Yeah. Best Supporting Character for Fritzy. I like that little girl. And there's also a nomination here for Best Meet Cute for this scene in the restaurant, sort of near the beginning of the book, where Marnie the matchmaker matches Graham and Winnie. So it's a super cute scene. Is it the best meet cute of the year? Maybe. And because I know you're thinking that this is just a silly, funny, romantic comedy, like silly book, right? You can't possibly get anything deep or meaningful that you would ever talk about out of this silly book, right? Is this what you're thinking? Well, you would be wrong. Because, yes, this is a silly, funny, romantic comedy of a book. But it is also a book with lots of things in it that make you think about what you believe to be true. And so we're going to play a game I like to call Agree or Disagree. Okay, here's how we play. I have chosen some statements that characters in this book have stated. So these are things that they believe are true about themselves, about other people, about their world they live in, and about how it works or doesn't work, right? So I'm going to repeat their statement and ask you if you agree or disagree. You'll have to decide if you agree or you disagree, and then figure out why. Sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, this may be a silly little romantic comedy of a book, but there is stuff in here that is deep and meaningful. All right, here we go. Love doesn't always come in the package we expect. Do you agree or disagree? Sometimes love doesn't look like what you had in mind. Agree or disagree? The universe is going to a great deal of difficulty to line things up for you. Agree or disagree? There's no one person for everyone. That's a bunch of propaganda to keep women in their place. The truth is that the more love you give out, the more comes back to you. And then it just keeps going and going. So you can have lots of people in your life simultaneously, And people will just gravitate towards you because they feel you loving them. Do you agree or disagree? Sometimes there can be a mood heading for you, and you have to simply stand there and face it down. Do you agree or disagree? A happiness therapist told me that you can change your whole life by doing this one thing. Constantly ask yourself this question when you have a decision to make. Would this make me happier, or would that make me happier? It's like when you're at the eye doctor and he says, can you see better with this set of lenses, or is it better with this other set of lenses? This way or that? And then you have to always pick the thing that brings you the most joy. Never mind all the other stuff. Just go for the thought that feels better. Agree or disagree? Dancing, I think, is always a good idea. Agree or disagree? Trying too hard is wonderful. You think plain and unvarnished is going to bring you any real joy? Agree or disagree? Give everything you have to love. It's the only thing that counts. Agree or disagree? Some of those are not so easy, right? Not just a silly little romantic comedy entertainment only book, is it? Matchmaking for Beginners. To talk about this book, after talking about A Happy Catastrophe, we've got to shift our brain and go back to the past. Okay, so we're going back before Marnie and Patrick, right? Back to when Marnie is a nursery school teacher living with her fiance, Noah, in California. Okay, are you with me? All right, so Marnie and Noah are getting married, and Noah decides on their wedding day that he doesn't really want to marry Marnie. Marnie is having none of that. So Marnie, on the wedding day, talks Noah into getting married anyway, even though he doesn't want to. So they get married. And then Noah breaks up with Marnie on their honeymoon. Marnie then moves back to Florida, where she ends up getting back together with her high school boyfriend, Jeremy. And not all that long after, she breaks up with Noah, right? After she's almost pretty quickly into this thing with Jeremy. And then Jeremy asks Marnie to marry him, and Marnie says yes. Then, basically at the same time that she says yes to marrying Jeremy, she inherits a brownstone in Brooklyn that belonged to Noah's great aunt, Blix. Blix and Marnie only met twice in their whole lives, right? The first time was when Marnie and Noah were engaged. They met at a party and hit it off, you could say. Blix really took to Marnie, and Marnie liked Blix because Blix is like a quirky, oddball kind of a woman. Obviously, she left her brownstone to a complete stranger, so she's an oddball-y kind of a woman. And then the second time Blix and Marnie met was at Marnie's wedding. That almost didn't happen, and maybe shouldn't have happened. And honestly, Blix didn't want it to happen, right? Blix didn't want Marnie to marry Noah because Blix was also a magic matchmaker. And Blix was like, Noah is not Marnie's destiny. Patrick is Marnie's destiny. Patrick just happens to be a man who lives in the basement of Blix's brownstone because he is like this recluse. He never ever goes outside, like under any circumstances. He doesn't leave the house, right? And because Patrick is Marnie's destiny, Blix needs to get Marnie to Brooklyn to meet Patrick. So, of course, she leaves Marnie the brownstone. All right, so newly engaged Jeremy Marnie, who thinks that she's perfectly happy, right? She moves to Brooklyn for 3 months, right? And while she's there, she meets this quirky cast of characters that live in Blix's brownstone, including Patrick. And so this book is it's a love story, right? It's about getting married and getting divorced. It's about figuring out who you want to spend the days of your life with. And it's about figuring out what you want the days of your life to be. Like, what do you want them to actually look like? And by the way, it's not just Marnie figuring all of this out, right? It's the whole cast of characters. It's a love story about how the heart breaks and how it grows back, and how you never know what's going to happen next, and how simple things can make you feel so much happiness. Is that happiness the happiness that you want? I don't know. It's a great book. It's a great book. I went back and forth between 5 stars and 4.5, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. And it's getting a possible Figgy Award nomination for Best Meet Cute. Another one, another Maddie Dawson with the Best Meet Cute. I don't know. Is it because this is a matchmakery kind of book that there are good meet cutes? I don't know. But it's not like a romantic meet cute in this one. The meet cute that I'm giving the Figgy Award for is for the scene where Blix and Patrick meet outside the Met in New York. Is it the best meet cute of 2023? Maybe. Maybe. And because again, I think people sometimes don't choose these kinds of funny, silly, romantic comedy books for their book club because they're afraid, or they think that there won't be anything interesting or meaningful to talk about. All right, remember how we played agree or disagree with the Happy Catastrophe? Well, now I'm going to give you 3 things that I would love to talk about with my book club after reading this book. When Marnie is floating in the pool at her sister's house, after spending the day dreaming about what her life could be like if she marries Jeremy and has babies and they live happily ever after in Florida. What were you feeling when she says, "This is what happiness feels like"? And have you ever been floating in a pool or somewhere and felt that way? When, where, and why? How did you feel when Marnie's parents came to California to get her and she thinks, "Back to the mothership for repairs"? And have you ever had to go back to the mothership? All right, what did you think of Noah and Jeremy and Patrick? And why do you think Marnie fell in love with all 3 of these men? And is it weird to fall in love with 3 different men in the same year and get engaged, almost married, to 2 of them in the same year? What was all that about? And what do you think of it? You're in the right place. We read different. Thanks for watching. See you next time.